Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Continuing Education, SOCE, Master's Degree Programs, Master of Science, Food Nutrition, MSCDFSM, Revised, Second Year, MFN-004 Advanced Nutrition, Unit-6 Water, 6.1 Introduction, Units 3, 4 and 5 in this course covered the macronutrients. Macronutrients, are those nutrients which are required in large amounts by our body, namely carbohydrates, fats and proteins. We studied about their functions, role and food sources. Other than the macronutrients, we do require certain other nutrients, some of which are required in very small amounts, but these are extremely important. We shall learn about these nutrients, the micronutrients, in the next few units. Now in this unit, we shall focus on water, the most important nutrient of all the essential nutrients required by the body. The absence of water affects us more quickly than the absence of any other nutrient. Meeting our need for a continuous supply of life-sustaining water and maintaining the body water in different compartments are major nutritional and physiologic tasks. What is the role of water in the body? How is the water distributed and held in the body? What is meant by water balance? What is a water requirement? What do the disturbances in fluid balance lead to? You will find a detailed discussion on these important aspects in this unit. Objectives. After studying this unit, you will be able to enumerate the functions of water in the human body, discuss the factors influencing water content of the human body, explore the most basic nutrition task of water balance and the mechanisms involved in regulating this, appreciate the requirements of water for different age groups, explain the disturbances in fluid balance and consequences, and describe the importance of averting fluid imbalance and methods of correcting fluid imbalance when it occurs. 6.2 Water, an essential but overlooked nutrient. You may already know that the total body water, TBW, constitutes 50 to 60% of the body weight. A 70 kg standard male contains 42 liter water, 60% of his body weight, while an adult female contains 55% of body weight as water. Why is there a difference in TBW content between males and females? This decrease is due to a higher fat content found in females. The proportion of water in the body, however, varies in individuals depending on body composition. Let us see how. For example, you will find that muscular people have a higher proportion of water than the less muscular or obese people. Can you say why? Well, simply because the striated muscle contains more water than any other body tissue, except blood. While water content of the muscles is 65 to 75%, it amounts to less than 25% of the weight of fat. Consequently, the differences in body water between individuals are largely due to the variations in body composition, i.e., differences in lean tissues versus fat. Similarly, males have a higher proportion of water in their bodies than do females because they have a higher proportion of lean tissue and a lower proportion of fat. An athlete will have a greater proportion of body water than a non-athlete as he/she has developed a relatively larger proportion of lean body mass. You would notice that there is a steady fall in the proportion of water as we age, which is due to an increased deposition of fat in the body, as well as loss of muscle mass with age. Table 6.1 presents the percentage of total body water at different stages of life cycle. Table 6.1, percentage of TBW in infants, children and adult. Subjects and total body water, percent, infants and children. At birth 75, at 1 year 1958, 6 to 7 years 1962, males 16 to 30 years 58.9, 31 to 60 years 54.7, 61 to 90 years 51.8, females 16 to 30 years 50.9, 31 to 90 years 45.2. So what makes water the most essential of all the essential nutrients? The discussion below highlights the role of water in the body. 6.2.1 Functions of water in the body. Because of its unique chemical and physical characteristics, water plays several key roles in our life processes. These functions are described herewith. Times water as a medium and solvent. Water is the medium of all cell fluids, including digestive juices, lymph, blood, urine, and perspiration. All the physiochemical reactions that occur in the cells of the body take place in the precisely regulated environment of the body fluids. Water enters into many essential reactions, such as hydrolysis, that occurs in digestion. Water is an end product in the oxidation of energy-yielding nutrients. Water is a solvent for the products of digestion, holding them in solution and permitting them to pass through the absorbing walls of the intestinal tract into the bloodstream. Due to its ability to dissolve the nutrients and cellular waste products, it carries nutrients to the cells and removes the waste products to the lungs, kidneys, gut and skin. Water as a lubricant. All fluids have lubricating properties as they can make it easier for the solid materials to slip over one another. Water-based fluids act as lubricants in various parts of the body, most notably within joints where synovial fluid makes movements easier and minimizes wear and tear in cartilage and bone. The lubricant action of saliva and mucus in the mouth and the esophagus is not so obvious. Water as a temperature regulator. Water plays an important role in the distribution of heat throughout the body and the regulation of body temperature. Heat is generated in the body due to hard work, exposure to heat, fever or merely by the metabolism of energy-yielding nutrients. The most effective route of heat loss from the body is via the evaporation of water as perspiration from the surface of the skin. When perspiration evaporates, the heat is largely drawn from the body. Under normal circumstances, the body is continuously cooled by the evaporation of perspiration from the surface of the skin, known as insensible perspiration. Water as a source of dietary minerals. Although water is composed of only oxygen and hydrogen, the water we drink or use in food preparation can contain significant amounts of minerals, such as calcium, magnesium, zinc, copper and fluoride. The amount will vary based on the source of water and any treatment the water has been put through. While hard water will contain magnesium and calcium, the soft water may contain sodium, being an effective solvent. Water may carry significant amounts of toxic compounds of lead or cadmium, pesticides, and also industrial waste products. Regular monitoring of water supply to check for such contamination is essential to safeguard the public health. The discussion above highlights the significance of water. Within the body, the water is held in the compartments. What are these compartments? What are the forces that control the water distribution in the body? Read the next section to understand these concepts. 6.3 Water distribution and compartments of body water. Each one of us has a veritable sea within, held in place by multiple membranes and a protective envelope of skin. Within this envelope, water diffuses freely to all parts and is controlled by its own chemical potential. There are various compartments of fluid in our body, separated by membranes. The quantity of water contained in every compartment is beautifully balanced by the forces that maintain equilibrium among the parts. There are electrolytes and other solutes in the water, the concentration and distribution of which determine internal shifts and balances in the body water. All these aspects, including the water distribution in the body, are described in this section. We begin by getting to know the body water compartments. 6.3.1 Compartments of body water. Within the body, water is found into major compartments. These are times the intracellular compartment, inside the cell, the extracellular compartment, outside the cell, the water containing varied concentrations of biochemicals in these compartments is, therefore, referred to as intracellular fluid, ICF, and extracellular fluid, ECF. Intracellular fluid compartment constitutes 2/3 of the total body water, as illustrated in Figure 6.1. Figure 6.1 intracellular fluid compartment, two-thirds of the total body water. Figure 6.2 diagrammatically represents the two fluid compartments of the body. Figure 6.2. The two major fluid compartments of the body. The chemical composition of these fluid compartments varies from place to place in the body, depending on the type of cells, the fluid within and around it. The intracellular and extracellular fluid compartments are separated by the semi-permeable membranes of the body's cells. These membranes allow water to pass through them but form a selective barrier to other chemicals, allowing them to diffuse or to be carried readily and restricting the passage of many others. Let us learn about ICF and ECF in more details. A. The intracellular fluid or the water within the cells makes up about 40 to 45% of the total body weight. Because the body cells are the sites of vast metabolic activity, it is of no surprise that the total water inside the body cells is about twice the amount outside the cells. These are high in potassium and magnesium and low in sodium and chloride ions. B. The extracellular fluid compartment is further subdivided into several smaller compartments, as you may have noticed in Figure 6.2. These include plasma, the intravascular fluid compartment, and the intercellular, interstitial or extravascular fluid, ISF, compartment, the transcellular fluid compartment. Let us get to know a little more about these compartments. Plasma is the only major fluid compartment that exists as real collection of fluid all in one location. It differs from ISF in its much higher protein content. Blood contains suspended red and white cells, so plasma has been called the interstitial fluid of the blood. The fluid compartment called the blood volume is interesting in that it is a composite compartment containing ECF and ICF. The extracellular fluid compartment is subdivided into the intravascular fluid compartment, fluid within the blood vessel, and intercellular interstitial extravascular fluid compartment, fluid between the body cells but outside of the blood vessel. The intravascular fluid comprises of all the fluid within the blood vessels of the vascular system, namely the arteries, veins, and capillaries. The intercellular compartment, on the other hand, contains the fluid around and between the cells of the body, which carries nutrients to the cells and collects waste products for eventual excretion. The intravascular fluid is separated from the intercellular fluid by the walls of the blood vessels, which also form a semi-permeable barrier that allows the water to pass through it but exerts a strict selective control over the passage of other chemicals. The transcellular fluid is a small compartment that represents all those body fluids which are formed from the transport activities of cell. These do not readily exchange water with the bulk of the extracellular compartment and includes cerebrospinal fluid and secretions of the gastrointestinal tract, the fluids in the eyeball, vitreous humor, around joints, synovial fluid, and within the digestive tract, as well as a few specialized fluids are outside the cells and thus are extracellular, but do not readily exchange water with the bulk of the extracellular compartment. These fluids are called transcellular fluid compartment. So we have looked at the various water compartments of our body. How is water distribution controlled in these compartments? The next subsection focuses on this aspect. 6.3.2 Forces influencing water distribution. Two major types of solute particles control body water distribution by their varying concentrations in body fluids and the forces these concentrations create. These solute particles are of two kinds: electrolytes, that include the positively charged sodium and potassium ions, and the negatively charged chloride ions, commonly known as electrolytes, and the plasma protein. The concentration of sodium inside the cells is about 5 meql, milliequivalents, compared with 140 meql outside, while for chloride ions, concentration is 96 to 106 meql. The normal range for potassium is 3.7 to 5.2 mgl. The specific electrolytes and the plasma proteins are, therefore, the main players in the balancing act in RC within. The movement of water is controlled mainly by osmotic pressure generated by the inorganic ions in solution in the body. Osmotic pressure is directly proportional to the number of particles in solution and usually refers to the pressure exerted by water or solvents flowing into a solution at the cell membrane. The osmotic pressure of the intracellular fluid is the function of its content of potassium, the predominant cation in the intracellular fluid, as illustrated in Figure 6.3. By contrast, the osmotic pressure of extracellular fluid may be considered relative to its content of sodium, the major cation present in extracellular fluid. Although variations in the distribution of sodium and potassium ions are the principal causes of water shifts between the various compartments, chloride and phosphate ions also influence the water balance. Figure 6.3. Relative levels of Na and K in the intracellular and extracellular fluid. The plasma proteins, which are non-diffusible because of their large molecular weight, also play an important role in maintaining osmotic equilibrium. Oncotic pressure, or what is also known as colloidal osmotic pressure, COP, is the pressure at the capillary membrane caused by dissolved proteins in the plasma. Oncotic pressure helps to retain water within the blood vessels, thus maintaining the integrity of the blood volume in the vascular compartment. With the understanding of water distribution and the forces which come in play, let us next study the concept of water balance. But before that, let us review what we have learned so far. 6.4 Water balance. The amount of fluid in the body is tightly controlled because imbalance can be devastating. In a normal individual, the maintenance of water balance is achieved by adjusting both water intake and excretion as needed. What are the major sources of water intake and excretion? Read further to find out. 6.4.1 Water intake. The major sources of water are 1. The preformed water that we consume as water or as beverage. This will include both preformed water in fluids and in foods. The amount of fluids that we consume as beverages, including water, depends on climatic conditions and habit. People living in tropics, where there are greater losses of water due to evaporation from the skin, consume more water than do those in temperate climates, and people who engage in strenuous physical activity drink more than do people leading a sedentary lifestyle. This may amount to as much as 1 to 2 L day. This may also be referred to as preformed water in fluids. Foods, other than water and beverages, are the second most important sources of water for the body. Most foods contain 50% water, but milk has the highest amount of water. Fruits and vegetables rank next to milk, while fats and oils do not contain any water. The water contained in cookies, cakes and chocolate are relatively low. This entire group contributes to 25 to 30% of daily water intake. This may also be referred to as preformed water in foods. 2. Water that arises from oxidation of foods within the body, which is referred to as water of oxidation or metabolic water. Water which comes from the oxidation of food is the last source of water. 1 g of starch yields 0.6 g of water. 1 g of protein 0.41 g, and 1 g of fat gives 1.07 g of water. This source contributes only about 10% of the total water input. This is also known as water of oxidation, metabolic water. The water embedded in the network of glycogen molecules in muscle and liver is made available to the body when it is used as a source of energy. Therefore, in case of athletes using glycogen reserves as a source of energy during intense physical activity, this serves as an additional source of water. Next, what are the routes of water loss from our body? Let us find out. 6.4.2 Water output. Losses of body water. Water is lost from the body by the 4 routes, namely kidneys, renal system, skin, lungs and intestine. Let us discuss each of these routes. A. Renal loss. Normal adult kidneys excrete about 1 to 2 liters of urine daily. The water in this total volume is made up of 2 portions, obligatory and facultative. I. Obligatory water excretion. The kidney is obligated to excrete some water to rid the body of its daily load of urinary solutes. the body's excretory system is designed to maintain the necessary balance through its filtering and selective reabsorbing system in the kidneys. About 15 milliliters of water is required to dissolve 1 g of solute materials arising out of the metabolism. The quantity of obligatory water excretion depends on the load on the metabolic products, chiefly urea and sodium chloride. The average adult obligatory water excretion is about 900 milliliters. 2. Facultative water excretion. In addition to obligatory water loss, an additional 500 milliliters, more or less water is excreted for maintaining water balance. B. Skin. The water loss from the skin is through perspiration, which could be insensible and/or visible. I. Insensible perspiration accounts for a relatively constant amount of water loss that is proportional to the surface area of the body. It is so called because the evaporation takes place from the skin immediately and the water loss is not noticeable. As we have already seen, this evaporation is an important means by which body temperature is maintained. Infants have a much greater surface area relative to body weight than do adults. Consequently, they are much more vulnerable to water loss from the skin and rapid changes in body temperature. 2. The water losses by visible perspiration are highly variable. The amount could be as high as 4 L in hot climate or during strenuous physical activity. Whenever a great deal of water is lost by perspiration, body water is conserved by the elimination of much more concentrated urine. See intestine. A small quantity of water, about 100 to 200 milliliters, is normally lost in feces, but this can exceed 5 liters in diarrheal episodes. D. Lungs. The air expired from the lungs also contains water. Any condition that would increase the rate of respiration, for example, fever, increases the water loss by this route. An individual engaged in the vigorous activity will lose more water by this route as compared to one who is sedentary. The details of input and output in a cool environment are shown in Table 6.2. Table 6.2. Daily water balance in man. Now, we have a good idea about the water intake and output. It is interesting to note that, in spite of the water output, the total body water is maintained. How is the water balance maintained in the body? Let's learn about this concept next. 6.4.3 Regulation of water balance. The input of water, as well as its loss, can be highly variable due to individual habits and environmental factors. In spite of this, the total body water needs to be maintained constant to achieve normal osmolality for physiological functions. The osmolality is a measure of the osmoles of solute per kilogram of solvent. In chemistry, the osmole, OSM, is a unit of measurement that defines the number of moles of a chemical compound that contribute to a solution's osmotic pressure. Although the sources of water to the body and the loss of water from the body are in balance, the fluid exchanges that take place in a 24-hour period are of tremendous magnitude and impressive in precision and regulation. Regulatory steps operate which control water input by thirst and urinary output by kidneys. This regulation of water balance by digestive system, kidneys, hormonal control, and thirst is discussed herewith. A. For the digestive process alone. The estimated daily volume of fluid that enters and leaves the gastrointestinal (GI) tract is estimated to be about 9 liters, consisting of saliva, gastric juice, bile, pancreatic and intestinal juice, and water intake. The fluid exchange between the GI tract and the blood circulation are variable from hour to hour, yet they are so balanced that the volume of blood and the fluids within the tract are in equilibrium. The daily losses from the bowel are only around 100 to 200 milliliters. Almost all of the fluid is reabsorbed from the gut. B. The kidneys are highly efficient conservators of body water. Although the kidneys filter 180 liters of blood per day, 125 milliliters per minute, the urinary output is in the range of 1 to 2 liters for 24 hours. Before the urine leaves the kidneys, variable amount of water and various solutes are reabsorbed by the renal tubules. This ability plays a major role in maintaining blood volume within normal limits. The eventual urine produced after reabsorption has occurred, is collected in the bladder and excreted periodically. C. Hormonal control of fluid balance. When water intake is insufficient or water loss is excessive, the kidneys compensate by conserving water and excreting more concentrated urine. The renal tubules increase water reabsorption in response to the hormonal action of ADH, antidiuretic hormone, released by the pituitary glands under the stimulation of the hypothalamus, and this helps to restore the blood volume. Water balance is critical in maintaining the blood volume, which in turn influences blood pressure. Cells in the kidneys respond to low blood pressure by releasing an enzyme called renin, which in turn causes the kidneys to reabsorb sodium through a series of events. Sodium reabsorption in turn is accompanied by water retention, thus helping to restore blood volume and the blood pressure. Renin activates a protein called angiotensinogen in the blood to its active form, angiotensin. Being a powerful vasoconstrictor, angiotensin narrows the blood vessel, thereby raising the blood pressure. Angiotensin also mediates the release of the hormone aldosterone, which causes the kidneys to retain more sodium and thus the water. Again, the effect is that when more water is needed, less is excreted. In summary, the following three mechanisms effectively restore homeostasis by responding to low blood volume or highly concentrated blood, as illustrated in Figure 6.4. ADH causes water retention, angiotensin constricts blood vessels, aldosterone causes sodium retention. These mechanisms cannot maintain water balance by themselves. However, they work only if a person drinks enough water. Homeostasis, as you may already know, is the process whereby the internal environment of an organism tends to remain balanced and stable. Homeostasis as a mechanism is discussed in detail in the Human Physiology course in Unit 8. Do go through the unit carefully. Kidneys retain sodium and water, thus increasing blood volume. Figure 6.4. How the body regulates water excretion. D. Thirst and satiety influence water intake, apparently in response to changes sensed by the mouth, hypothalamus, and nerves. When the blood is too concentrated, having lost water, but not the dissolved substances within it, the mouth becomes dry, and the person responds by drinking. When the hypothalamus detects that the blood is too concentrated, it also initiates the drinking behavior. Besides stimulating the thirst sensation, the hypothalamus stimulates the pituitary gland to release ADH. This hormone increases the reabsorption of water. Thirst drives a person to seek water, but it often lags behind the body's needs. A water deficiency that develops slowly can switch on the drinking behavior in time to prevent dehydration, but a deficiency that develops quickly may not. Also, thirst itself may not always remedy a water deficiency. A person must notice the thirst signal, pay attention, and take time to get a drink. The long-distance runner, the gardener in hot weather, the child busy playing, and the elderly person whose thirst sensation may be blunted can experience serious dehydration if they fail to drink promptly in response to their need for water. So then, how much water does the body need? Let us find out. But after the Check Your Progress exercise, 6.5 requirements for water, the requirement of water is estimated based on a factorial approach, utilizing the existing literature of the fluid guidelines, with corrections made for body mass and energy requirement to suit the Indian context. The water required from beverages for adult man ranges from 32 to 58 milliliters per kg body mass, and for women, it ranges from 27 to 52 milliliters per kg body mass, with sedentary working group at lower and the heavy working group at higher end of the range. For children, the requirement is greater than 60 milliliters per kg body mass, and for adolescent boys it ranges from 47 to 60 milliliters per kg body mass, while for girls it is 39-49 milliliters per kg body mass. For pregnant women, based on the working intensity, the water required from beverages ranges from 2.1 to 3.2 liters per day. For old age, irrespective of gender, The present consensus for water requirement from beverages is 33 milliliters per kg body mass for sedentary activity and 38 milliliters per kg body mass for moderate activity. Infants have an increased need for water because of the limited capacity of their kidneys to handle the renal solute load, their higher percentage of body water, and large surface area per unit of body weight. Infant 0 to 6 months, 7 to 12 months, total water requirement 0.6 liters per day from breast milk or formula, 1.0 liters per day from breast milk or formula, foods, plain water, and other beverages. Refer to Table 6.3 for water requirement for children, adolescents, adults, and elderly. What are the consequences of disturbances in fluid balance? We assume you know. Read the next section and refresh your memory. 6.6 Disturbances in fluid balance, appropriate concentration. The correct functioning of cells and tissues depends on appropriate concentrations of nutrients, so any abnormal loss or accumulation of fluid can cause a variety of problems. These problems may be caused by a. Water loss from diarrhea, nausea, excessive perspiration, or fever, resulting in dehydration, and b. Undesirable changes in the distribution of fluid within the body. Let us learn about these problems in more details. 6.6.1 Dehydration. Dehydration is defined as the excessive loss of body water. It may occur because of inadequate intake, or abnormal loss of body water, or a combination of both. The fall in the level of body water associated with dehydration is associated with a fall in blood volume with a consequent fall in blood pressure. The symptoms of dehydration are times thirst, loss of appetite, decreased urination, impaired physical performance, nausea, impaired temperature regulation, muscle spasms, increased pulse rate, increased respiration rate, general debilitation. Table 6.3 Water requirement for children, adolescents, adults and elderly. Symptoms of severe dehydration appear when fluid levels fall by more than 10%, whereas a 20% reduction is fatal. With water loss in excess of 10% of body weight, there is a possibility of cardiovascular failure caused by a reduction in blood pressure and a compensating increase in the heart rate as highlighted earlier in Figure 6.2. Abnormal loss of water occurs from prolonged vomiting, hemorrhage, diarrhea, protracted fevers, burns, excessive perspiration, drainage from wounds, and so on. Athletes lose considerable amounts of water through the skin as a result of their strenuous physical activity. People for whom water losses may be accompanied by significant losses of sodium include those engaged in strenuous physical activity of any sort, those exposed to high environmental temperatures at work, and visitors to tropical regions who are unaccustomed to heat. Such people, and in general anyone losing in excess, may need small amounts of salt along with the fluid they drink to make up their sodium loss. The Indian tradition of serving mildly salted watery buttermilk, panna, salted lime juice on a hot afternoon are all examples of replenishing the fluid and salt loss through skin. Children who are ill, especially those with fever, diarrhea, and increased perspiration, need to be reminded to drink plenty of fluid. One other situation that demands extra fluid for the body is a long airplane flight. A traveler can lose approximately 1.5 liters of water during a 3-hour flight, chiefly due to increased insensible perspiration. The dehumidified air in the airplane is so dry that excessive insensible perspiration and evaporation occur. Athletes in good physical condition experience a reduction in athletic performance if they lose 3% of body water. Studies investigating the factors limiting our efficiency at work suggest that a lack of adequate water intake has a much more significant effect than does a lack of food. Reduction of as little as 2% of total body water causes a decline of 20 to 30% in efficiency at work. Carbohydrate diet XMIV long of body during starvation or a high protein and low carbohydrate diet, excessive loss of body water, sodium, potassium is lost in the urine. This accounts for the rapid initial weight loss and weakness often reported by people on starvation-like diets. The discussion above focused on dehydration, the condition when the water output is more resulting in imbalance. Opposite to this condition, when intake of fluid is greater, the condition caused is called edema. Let us get to know about this condition. 6.6.2 Edema. In some pathological conditions, the body is in a positive water balance, that is, the intake of fluids is greater than the excretion, and the patient is said to have edema. Edema results when the body water is increased to the levels of 10% or more above normal. We had learnt in the earlier section that plasma proteins exert oncotic pressure that helps to retain water within blood vessels, thus preventing its leakage from plasma into the interstitial spaces. In certain disease states, as in kwashiorkor, the protein content of the plasma is exceptionally low, water leaks into the interstitial spaces causing edema. Edema is one of the classical symptoms of kwashiorkor, and this has already been covered in the unit on proteins. Dietary treatment with proteins of high biological value should be initiated to correct this, in contrast to the edema arising due to a dietary protein deficiency in PEM. The edema noticed in nephrotic syndrome results due to an increased permeability of the glomerular capillary, the plasma proteins, which are normally retained in the blood, escape into the urine causing proteinuria. With a loss of plasma proteins in the urine, blood proteins fall sharply, giving rise to edema. Congestive cardiac failure, CCF, and cirrhosis of the liver are examples of conditions with a disturbance in sodium excretion, namely sodium excretion is reduced, thereby contributing to the retention of water. Treatment will involve restriction in the amount of salt without fluid restriction in the diet. At times, diuretics may be used to facilitate fluid excretion. Fluid loss secondary to diarrhea has been responsible for thousands of deaths of children in developing countries. Oral rehydration therapy, ORT, with a simple mixture of water, salts and sugar has been highly effective in reducing the number of deaths. No wonder water has been appropriately described as the most forgotten and taken for granted nutrient. 6.7 Summary. In this unit, we learnt that water, in spite of being ignored, is an essential nutrient required for life. Though the content of total body water varies from individual to individual, it plays a key role in the body. You would recall that these involve carrying several nutrients and waste products throughout the body, serves as the solvent for minerals, vitamins, amino acids, glucose, and a multitude of other small molecules, and acts as lubricant and cushion around joints, aids in body's temperature regulation, serves as a shock absorber inside the eyes, spinal cord, and in pregnancy, the amniotic sac surrounding the fetus in the womb, and actively participates in many chemical reactions. Then we saw that water is a constituent of every cell of the body intracellular fluid. Spaces between cells, interstitial space, and also within the blood, intravascular fluid. Water is obtained from various sources such as beverages, solid foods, and energy-yielding nutrients within the body. On the other hand, water is eliminated from the body through urine, skin, lungs, and feces. We, then, learnt about a variety of sensitive physiological control systems. Finally, we came to know that in order to be adequately hydrated, the average adult should consume about 2 liters of fluid per day, in the form of clean water, and in addition consume non-caffeinated, non-alcoholic beverages, soups, milk, buttermilk, and other beverages. The disturbances in fluid balance is of 2 types, dehydration and edema. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.